Welcome everyone here. Thank you for coming. Welcome everyone there online to this hybrid roundtable at King's College London, Digital Methods in Brazil. I am Janna Joceli Omena, a lecturer in Digital Methods in the Department of Digital Humanities. And I'm going to moderate this session together with Thais Lobo, who is joining me in the second part. So this event is supported by King's Digital Futures Institute, the Center for Digital Culture, and the Digital Network Methodologies. This roundtable aims to foster dialogue about the current state of digital methods in internet research in Brazil. It is also a celebration of the emerging research practices, and we want to kick off a global South network of digital methods, starting from with Brazil. The program is divided in two parts. In the first part, we have the interventions of our guest speakers and myself. And after the tea break, we'll have a moment for critical commentary, Q&A, and collective discussion, and I'm really looking forward to that. Let me briefly introduce or present our guest speakers. Moment. Alan Angeluci, Elias Bitencourt, Giulia, Tucci, Richard Rogers, and say thank you so much for being here. Thank you for accepting this invitation. Thais Lobo and we are moderating the session. And also because the Brazilian cluster is the majority here in this table, I thought it would be nice to show you which region of Brazil we are from. Elias and we are from the northeast of Brazil, Recife, Pernambuco, Elias, Salvador, Bahia. Thais, Giulia, and Alan, they are from the southeast. Thais and Giulia from Rio de Janeiro, and Alan from São Paulo. Well, you are welcome to join this mural board, to introduce yourself and to write your questions. Thais is also sharing the link in the chat. So throughout the interventions, please feel free to leave your questions there. You are also welcome to join the Mapping Digital Methods in Brazil. So this starting point of starting a Global South network about digital methods, of filling up this form. Okay, I'm going to kick off this table with my opening talk, I'd say, to situate what digital methods are we talking about. And to do that, I want to introduce a definition and unpack digital methods from three perspectives. So the methods we are talking about, ground findings with and about the internet, web data, technologies, cultures of use, and subcultures of use belonging to these environments, but not in an instrumental way, precisely because the knowledge mobilized by the medium and digital objects is taken seriously. So here the notion of medium encompasses, but also expands what we understand of media as a communication platform. And the methods invite us to understand not only dominant platforms, but also web technologies, research software and tools, and how they integrate into research methods, accounting for their own concepts, languages, and practices. So this mindset sets digital methods apart from instrumental uses of the medium through research practice, enabling us to think of the topic of investigation along with computational media. So I think we can safely say that these methods are not only about doing stuff with data, or a question of more data, or the idea of migrating existing methods to the online environment. It is not also mastering ready-made packages methods, or even the mastering of developing code and software. And this is a definition that introduces digital methods as a particular form of research practice that is crucially situated in the technological environment that it explores and exploits. So, for example, let me use the Brazilian protests against and in favor of the impeachment of President Dilma Rousseff in Brazil back in 2016. So, this study asked research questions and designed the methods with and about Instagram usage culture, a specific digital objects such as hashtags and images. And it also accounted for the computational media required to implement the methods. Well, now I'm closing this first part of my talk by highlighting what differentiates this method school from others. Well, digital methods as a term, a research practice, and a field originally proposed by Richard Rogers back in 2009, has theoretical backgrounds that stems from science and technology studies, actor network theory, software studies, and communication design studies. It is incorporated by very specific applied principles that I will briefly unpack today. And the special care for the medium, specificity and dynamics, and the premise of working with what is natively digital certainly differentiate this school of method from others also born in 2009, such as computational driven methods and cultural analytics methods. So they do dialogue on some points, but have different principles, philosophies, and applications. Now, moving on to unpack digital methods, the first perspective is the theoretical practical foundations. And I want to start with the seminal publications from the late 90s by Richard as a historical reference for the mindset underlining the rationale of the methods, because he presents us, let's say, three main points that digital methods work with what is natively digital in opposition of what is digitalized, that media ephemerality is not a problem or a bias, but it is something we should learn from, account for, and get advantage of, and the idea of repurposing the mechanisms of dominant platforms. So we ask research questions and gain insights about a particular phenomena with these points. So we developed the ability of see the topic of study through lists of digital objects or keywords that should be good enough for data set curation and further analysis, as in landscaping climate change, by querying search engines using specific keywords and following specific links uh, uh, to list URLs. You see there a link following technique. So then in this example, climate change is analyzed through different hyperlink maps. Data visualization as a means of inquiry is another theoretical practical foundation of digital methods. For that, my example is like another seminal publication that suggests that we can interpret networks according to their visual affordances, basically thinking together with node position responsive to force-directed algorithms and dataset building, and node size and color, which resonates the researcher analytical decisions. And another crucial point is the quali-quantitative approaches that belongs to these methods. So it's being argued that digital methods offer the most developed example of quali-quantitative approach to social research. And so here, rather than a gap between uh, um, two ways of advancing in thinking methods, we can discuss an opportunity to that bridges these traditions through digital methods research. One example about the entanglement between quali and quanti involving a back and forth interactive dynamic in research practice. It is the network vision methodology, which proposes a system of methods for the study of online image collections with AI and through network visualization. So we start with a qualitative approach to make the image collection and rely on AI to classify, interpret images. Then we make qualitative decisions when building the network using quantitative measures and calculations to shape the network. And quali and quanti aspects can guide the interpretation of the network. Well, the second perspective is technical fieldwork and practice. And this perspective requires, I'd say, a vision of technicity to implement the methods, because to do that, we gain a familiarity with computational media from conceptual, technical, empirical perspectives. And now to unpack that, let's say that these the procedural steps often constituting the methods, and every step is operationalized within the web, not only as a social space, but as a technical object and research environment. At the same time, we are invited to take computational media in their own right and relationally, as they add new layers of meaning to the phenomenon of investigation. Having data visualization for inquiry rather than a final product, we engage with navigational procedures to make sense of data. A practical example is considering these three pillars, which are unique individually but interconnected in practice, and acknowledging that they have a say in the topic under investigation. So, for example, the study of political bots in the Brazilian context, there is an understanding of bot behaviors and characteristics on social media, such as that bots follow bots. So a list of bot-like accounts serve as an entry point to scrape bot following networks, and the metadata of these networks allows the study of political bots, agency, and behavior in the Brazilian context, such as investigating the role and the presence of the ghost accounts in socio-technical environments, and also political bot visual vernaculars, the appropriation and reappropriation of the Brazilian flag, symbols, and logos, or detecting fake accounts using human profile and highly politically engaged. As we know, there is an inevitable engagement with software and AI platforms through every step of the methods. And in a sense, our role as researchers, when looking at so many possibilities to work with, is developing the ability to orchestrate the computational media necessary to implement the methods. And this is why digital methods researchers understand computational media conceptually, technically, and empirically. And finally, because data visualization is a means for inquiry, we engage with a navigational procedure. An example is using Gephi overview combined with looking at the data on Instagram itself, using annotated visualizations to study the circulation of Amazon Fire's images across the visible web. And these photos illustrate, I'd say, the relevance of using big screens, annotated visualizations when applying this navigational procedure. The third and final point to unpack digital methods refers to method schools and software code development. And I almost finished concluding my intervention. Digital method schools create an environment of collaboration and also interdisciplinary setting. So I can list, I'd say, 4 reasons that can back up what comes out of digital method schools. First, as a means of teaching and learning digital methods. A second, an amazing space, I'd say, for methods and tool creation. There is also a reflective aspect in critical perspective. that is achieved in collaboration. Insights impossible to grasp individually. And last but not least, the project reports resulting from these schools have been serving as starting points for producing relevant scientific knowledge. So there is a culture of developing open methods, recipe tutorials, and open software to enable method reproducibility. For example, King's Capture and Analysis Toolkit is now available across faculties thanks to the open source code created at OILab and also with Digital Methods Initiative. Another example is MIM SpectreGUI, which mediates video and API calls, but benefited from open source scripts developed by Bernard Rieder and André Minks, and also idea generation about methodological applications. As a result of that, benefiting more than 1,000 users now of the software. Well, this was supposed to be an introduction or an attempt to situate what type of digital methods we are discussing or maybe we want to discuss in this roundtable. And I just wanted to thank you for listening. And I'm going to invite our first guest speaker, which is Alan Angeluci, Senior Lecturer at the Department of Information and Culture, School of Communication and Arts, University of São Paulo.
Okay, hello everyone, good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here today. Actually, it's an honor. Thank you so much, Janna, for inviting me and making this happen. So congratulations. Also, congratulations for Thais Lobo that helped us to sort everything out here. And I also would like to thank Jonathan Gray here and Liliana Bonegro for such a warm welcome this week here at the Digital Humanities Department, here at King's as well. So thank you very much. I'm really happy to share some thoughts today with my colleagues that are online, my amazing partners, Giulia, Tucci, and Elias Bitencourt. They're coming next. And last but not least, Richard Rogers here. This big reference for all of us. Thank you for hosting me in the University of Amsterdam. The past few weeks was really nice to be there for all the inspiring, conversation, knowledge exchange. So thank you very much for that. So yeah, so my challenge here was like try to map a little bit of the research on digital methods in Brazil, like kind of a state of art, but not like that. So that's why I conducted like a kind of bibliometric search, trying to map researchers all from all the regions in Brazil, from north to the south. So my challenge here was try to give you a big picture of what people are doing there and what they're researching. Would like to start from my group. So this is SMU, the Smart Media Users Research Group. Coordinate this research group like for 10 years. We just celebrate 10 years last year. And now we are in a big group at the School of Communication Arts at the University of São Paulo. So we conduct a lot of research. And recently, like the last 4 or 5 years, we started doing digital methods, like following some references. So it's a great opportunity for us also as a group to discuss digital methods. So my talk today inevitably reflects our group perception of how digital methods have evolved in Brazil over those years. So should you be interested in learning more about our work, please visit us at smartmediausers.org. So we will be very happy to share and talk in other opportunities, okay? So these are some pictures of our people there, like in seminars, some events we do there. So last few months we had Lev Manovic in an event. So we're quite exciting group doing like many events, try to contact with people. So please join us. So talking about Brazil, that's why we are here, right? We try to take a look on research of digital methods in the country. Jana mentioned a little bit about the country, like the dimensions. So you can see like Brazil is like a continental country, like from the south to the north to northeast to the central west. You can see like different perspectives of cultural, of academic research. And this is quite a challenge for us there because we are kind of um, surrounded by Spanish-speaking neighbors, like the Hispanohablantes countries, like Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, Peru, and everyone else. And we also have this big ocean bordering us, like the Atlantic. So this, distance from not from all different regions in the world also represents some aspects of distance and connections as well from other regions. And we think that this might be, of course, an opportunity when we challenge this distance in terms of scientific research. So just to give you some context before starting, it's important to mention that research in Brazil is predominantly structured around public universities. So they are crucial in the academic production. The majority of these institutions are federal universities, so they are operating under the umbrella of federal government. Uh, Also, there's some state-run universities governed by state administrators rather than the federal government. So the university I came from, University of São Paulo, is under the umbrella of São Paulo state government. So this kind of situations give some opportunities and also some challenges in terms of conducting research. Um, uh, Brazil has also a strong tradition of publishing in its native language. So Brazilian Portuguese is like our main production language for doing research, which prioritize national impact over global reach. So most of Brazilian researchers, mainly in the communication field and the social science, applied science in Brazil, they often face financial and structural limitations, mainly publishing journals. So it's quite challenging to achieve and maintain like international indexing standards. And this several effects hinder the global visibility of Brazilian research. So, of course, there's lack of institutional incentives for publishing international journals, also the high costs associated with open access publications. There is also a still developing culture of internationalization in academia in Brazil. And also there's also many other broader geopolitical challenges influencing research dissemination. I'm not going to explore this in this talk today, but it's important for you guys to have this complex context in mind, because this scenario drives me to what I am telling you guys today, why I decided to collect this kind of publications and how they kind of give a sense of what people are researching in Brazil. So regarding this data exploration, how I conducted, I sought some concrete evidence from a more quantitative perspective to support certain insights that I bring here today. So I decided initially to conduct a survey scientific production on the field to get a broad picture and identify some relevant trends that could provide some food for thoughts for us. So I searched for a database from some journals and some institutions and some books that are very used in the country. Of course, this database has many potential research pathways, but due to the time constraint here, I made a few selections that I will present for you guys. So this month, January, I did some Google search using Google Scholar to extract the exact phrase Métodos Digitais, which is digital methods in Portuguese, like exactly Métodos Digitais in Portuguese without time restriction. So the idea was to really try to see which people are doing digital methods and mentioning digital methods explicitly. Because some people are kind of doing digital methods, but are not mentioning the references or mentioning these expressions. So we try to focus on people really mentioning digital methods explicitly. So that was our our focus. We've also filtered to applied social science and then further narrowed down to communication information, focus in media as well, focusing on nationally ranked journal and major conferences. I additionally search Web of Science and Scopus, although I know that's not very common to publish for Brazilian researching because of the availability of Brazilian journals in these databases. Also, I found some few works, but mostly overlapping with the initial data set, so I just followed the track. A total 228 publications were extracted. Then I manually curated, like using some Pythons to clean it up. And I had a final data set of 117 publications. Okay. So I selected journal articles, conference papers, books, book chapters, focused on publications authored by Brazilian researchers affiliated with Brazilian institutions, even if they had foreign co-authors. I exclude also works authored by Portuguese researchers, like from Portugal, because we share the same language, and also Portuguese institutions, just to have a look on Brazilian's perspective. So these are our main findings from the data set. So we can see the research on digital methods began to grow consistently between 2016 to 2020, then stabilized since then. We can see there's also some geographic, let me try to, okay, probably better. There's some geographical distribution of research here. So research is not well distributed across Brazilian regions. So we have like a dominance in Southeast and South regions, digital methods studies. The North region has a significantly fewer studies. As you can see, like in 2020, just one publication and nothing more. So this indicates a gap in research development in this area. So something for us to think about. Sorry about that. It's not, but I think you can see here. As you can see, also there's a relevant concentration of words in Minas Gerais state, which is this big state in the middle, like this green, very green one. Mainly from Universidade Federal de Minas Gerais, so the Federal University of Minas Gerais, followed by São Paulo and Rio in the southeast, and also Bahia and Maranhão in the northwest. So the main groups are in these areas. Here are the number of publications. As I mentioned, most of them came from Federal University of Minas Gerais, from Maranhão. Then in the southeast, we have Federal University Fluminense, Bahia, Espírito Santo, and then UFABC from São Paulo, and so on. And this gives us a glance of what people and from where are doing research on digital methods. So this tree map shows a little bit more about the authors, so we can see as well the Federal University with big production of publications, We can emphasize here the work of Carlos D'Andrea, Márcio Carneiro dos Santos, and other guys from Federal University of Minas Gerais as well, publishing in digital methods. And the vehicles that are publishing a lot on digital methods, mainly Intercom, which is a big congress in Brazil. Like most of students, researchers submit their papers to this congress in order to discuss their highlights. Also Compos, which is another big congress, but like for seniors researchers. And we have the Revista Galáxia, which is a journal very well ranked in Brazil, linked to a Catholic University of São Paulo, PUC São Paulo, and also others journals and publishers. So this is just to highlight some interesting aspects regarding the publications. We can see here the word cloud of titles. So although we can find important discussion on those social phenomena themselves, it's undeniable that there's a strong focus on how data is collected and analyzed through digital platforms, even with some gaps in the methodological process. Here we can see the approach and platforms, like 60% are more applied research on digital methods, and the main platforms investigated are like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. That's not so new, but it's interesting, for example, to envision how availability of API-based data extraction tools influence on which media is investigated in Brazil. For example, for Facebook, people were using NetVis when it was available. Now YouTube data tools for YouTube search. So this kind of availability influence a lot on the research. Here, regarding the subject topics, there's a very interesting site here. We can see that there's a lot of research on politics, disinformation, and also discussing activism, journalism. That's like the main topics that appeared in the research. And regarding tools and methods, we can see like Gephi mentioned by Janna. It's something that's really big, like very preferred tool for doing research there. NetVis, and also some Python language as well, and some tools that are authored by Brazilian researchers, such as the Ford script from Fabio Malini from University of Espírito Santo. Just summing up, like going to the end of my talk, this is a perspective of trending topics over time. We could see that politics is always it's a big thing, always being discussed with disinformation. So they're coupled, like a lot of research in politics and disinformation. Between 2020 and 2022, a lot of research on LGBT rights, and more recently in 2023, 2024, more research about artificial intelligence as well. Well, I will, of course, provide those slides for you guys to take a deeper look, because I know that's a lot of information. But this view is interesting for you to see which tools and methods are more used over the time. So we can see here, for example, YouTube data tools more here, like in 2021, 2022, more present, not being used too much before. Netlytic more concentrated here in 2016, 17, less later. Gephi with a huge concentration, maybe all over the period, but more around 2017, 2019. So this gives us some food for talk about availability of tools and methods being used for the researchers. And to finish my talk, I would like to give some final thoughts and some discussion points. I think from my reading, the term digital methods is often used like broadly, like covering various research involving digital tools. So studies on politics are very highly self-centered on Brazil. We don't see like studies regarding the European scenario or American scenario. It's really about polarization, about Bolsonaro, Lula, and other scenarios. And misinformation is a big thing, discussing health, discussing other political scenarios. As I mentioned, there is a significant gap in the north region of Brazil regarding the research. And um, that's it. Of course, these findings I presented today is like just a scratch, a surface, just really food for thoughts for us to discuss more now. And I was working on like a citation and co-citation graphs, but we can let it for later or for other day. This is my mail, my social media, like in LinkedIn. If you guys want to get in touch, it would be a pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity, and see you.
Alan will be back in the second part for the Q&A. Can you stop sharing your screen? Oh, it's here. Okay, it's here, sorry. Now I wanted to invite our second guest speaker, Elias Bitencourt. Elias, you can start sharing your screen. Elias is an associate professor in the design undergraduate program at the State University of Bahia. And when you're ready, Elias, you can start.
Okay, thank you. It's fine. So, good morning and afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon for my friends over here, and morning for my Brazilian friends. It's a real pleasure and an honor to be here today. So, I want to start by thanking Professor Janna Joceli for the mention and for the invitation. I also want to acknowledge Professor Rogers, Professor Thais, and my colleagues, Professor Valan and Professor Giulia. It's such an honor to be among with all you today. So my goal today is give you a quick overview of key research traditions and agendas in Brazilian media and communication studies that have influenced the growth of digital methods in the country. However, connecting digital methods with Brazil research tradition isn't so simple because Brazil has a long story of digital studies shaped by different schools of thought, scholars, research objects, and perspectives. Some align with what we call digital methods, others don't. Some overlap in certain areas, but may completely diverge in others. So there is also another challenger. The term digital method itself, as mentioned before by Alan, many researchers in Brazil do research that could fit within digital methods, but don't necessarily self-identify with or categorize the research under this field. Some develop the digital approaches organically, blending influences from other traditions without direct previously exposure to digital methods as a formal concept. Others, however, claim to do work with digital methods simply because they use digital tools, analyze data, or wrote a basic web scraping script in Python, for example. So if you ask who works with digital methods in Brazil, you might find those who don't, while overlooking those who maybe do but don't say or even realize they do. So to set a baseline for the discussion today, I try to map it out 7 research categories of research grouped them by recurring agendas and methodological approaches. So of course, this reflects my experience as a researcher and journal review, and it definitely doesn't capture the full picture. So here we have the digital activism studies, which have been around since the 90s, social network analysis works, also research inspired by material theory like STS, actor network theories, and new materialisms, studies online cultures and communities, privacy and governance, research on digital democracy, and more recent work using digital mixed methods, so to speak. So mapping this onto core digital methods, principles like media repurposing, platform affordances, cultures of use, medium specificity, following the medium and online groundness could be a bit tricky because it's hard to say which ones align more or less with digital methods without being unfair and unresponsible with my colleagues and fellow Brazilians. So to make this discussion a little bit easier, I built a quick and dirty spectrum-based framework. Again, it is not a factual representation of digital research in Brazil, and it's just a way to organize things and encourage our dialogue today. And of course, it's completely biased by my own experience and criticism. So here what I did. Um, I picked four key principles for digital methods and I placed them in two axes. On the vertical axis, we have the following medium and online groundness. It worth mentions that I know these concepts are not opposite, but I'm just trying to expose tensions between methodological and analytical approach from Brazilian researchers. Some researchers recognize the dynamism and the medium, but rely on external validation methods like interviews instead of digital traces. Others do the opposite. So in the second axis, it looks like platforms, agents, grammars, and specificities versus media repurposing as method. Again, it's not about opposition, but it's more about different emphasis. Some researchers consider affordances, but still use traditional virtual methods, while others repurpose media without fully engaging with these epistemological specificities or don't fully consider how platforms may shape knowledge. So from these, I identified four quadrants. Each one highlights such different spectral tendencies in digital research and also some gaps in Brazil. So starting clockwise, the first quadrant includes studies that follow the medium and repurpose the media as method, but is still relying on external validation and may overlook platform affordances and grammars in shaping the phenomenon. So I call this digital empiricism, where digital data is seen more like an objective and dynamic, but ultimately validated through external frameworks. The term empiricism highlighting the focus on objective measurement of digital data without questioning the infrastructural influence that shape its production and circulation. The second quadrant include these studies that are online grounded and use media as method, but often overlook affordances and platform dynamics updates. As a result, they tend to treat the digital as a tool for data collection or a static data repository rather than evolving infrastructure. So I call this digital functionalism to just to emphasize how the digital here may be treated as a technical tool rather than an active shaping force in knowledge production. So then we move to the third quadrant, which includes so here is you're seeing now those studies that focus on platform agencies, grammars, and affordances are online grounded and don't rely on standard validation, but sometimes they use computational methods, but may treat platforms as static systems of elements, metrics, and grammars. And I try to call this digital formalism because it analyzes the digital through the tangible structures without fully considering its epistemological and dynamic dimensions into analysis, so to speak. So finally, we have the fourth one, which includes the studies that recognize platform agencies, algorithms, and evolving dynamics, but don't adopt media logic as a method or rely on digital traces. So instead, they take a more essayistic and theoretical approach using interviews or traditional methods rather than direct data analysis. I call this digital observationalism because it studies the digital as an epistemic field where affordances and dynamic updates shape both research objects and the research itself. However, it doesn't fully incorporate media logic as a method when not staying in a theoretical propositional sphere. This study may use interview surveys of virtual methods to validate the arguments. So in other words, the digital here is treated as an onto-epistemic object of investigation rather than an onto-epistemic infrastructure repurposed as method. So now where do different research groups, Brazilian research papers fit into these frameworks? So of course, these include not those that identify as digital methods, but also those that don't or that have helped to shape the field in Brazil. So let's begin with what I think is the foundational research for digital methodologies in Brazil. These two fields were essential in emphasizing the importance of platform updates, the agency of affordances and grammars, and the validation of the phenomena through the own digital traces. However, they still had limitations when it comes to repurpose the media as a methodological approach. In pink, we have the research based on new materialisms, STS, actor network theories. This study mostly falls within the observationalist spectrum, but play a key role in highlighting media agency, situated analysis, and digital dynamics. This is especially important in a field where many Brazilian communication studies are still rooted in a more hermeneutical and anthropocentric perspective, so to speak. So in white, we have the network analysis studies, which were very popular in the early 20s. They're still relevant today, of course, but they have evolved significantly. So back then, these studies sat between the formalism and the observationalism as they built networks using APA data, but didn't always consider how algorithms and platform grammars shaped and reaggregated the data they used. So moving forward, we have here in orange the online and culture community studies, which are mostly observationalist, relying on interviews, ethnographies, ethnographies, and discourse analysis. However, they played a key role. Sorry, just mind my time. They play a key role on systematization of methods for the study digital phenomena in the field. This helped shape new generations of researchers and have since updated these debates with more online grounded approaches. In green, then we have the digital democracy research, a long-standing field in Brazil that gained traction with the INCT program funded by CNPq to support multi-institutional and interdisciplinary networks. So shaped by political polarization, digital governance, and democracy, this study helped to drive digital research in Brazil, offering learning toward functionalism, treating platform as data collection tools rather than fully engaging with hypotheses and platform dynamics. However, the rise of message apps and popularization of social media has pushed this research toward media repurposing and online grounded approaches, creating space for methodological experimentation and new generation of more mixing method researchers, which bring us to the next one group, which is the group of mixed method studies that combine theoretical and methodological frameworks from different traditions to explore a variety of objects. So this movement doesn't follow a specific agenda, but cuts across multiple studies, emerging as a more transversal trend and recent research. They build on STS studies, network analysis, and computational methods, bringing research closer to what we may recognize as a digital methods, properly speaking, nowadays. So these studies are mostly recent and driven by a younger generation of researchers, many of whom are independent and work outside universities, collaborating with research institutes, NGOs, and government agencies. So finally, we also have the group that seems to be testing the waters of digital method, but hasn't fully embraced it yet. So governance and privacy studies recognize affordances and platform dynamics, but sometimes remain observationalists, showing more virtual methods and conservative approaches. Digital activism studies, with some recent exceptions on algorithm racism, is worth to mention, but they most rely on hashtag carries plus content analysis without fully considering how digital infrastructures re-aggregate the phenomena they examine. So what does this mean for us today? So I think we can say that digital methods research in Brazil moves across different spectrums, revealing some particular characteristics. But there are still some real challenges in fully adopted digital methods. I'd say the biggest difficulties are on recognizing affordances, grammars, and platform specifics, dynamics in a situated way, and also treating media as methods. I go as far as to say that this resistance maybe comes from the deeply anthropocentric and hermeneutical traditions in Brazil media and communication studies. The field has been shaped more by semiotics, psychoanalysis, and language theories, which makes harder to see the medium as an actor or to acknowledge agency and non-human entities. So in that, in my view, this is the first step, not just to seeing platforms as co-authors of the phenomenon study, but as infrastructures that actively shape the social, both ontologically and epistemologically speaking. So of course, this framework isn't definitive, not precise, but I hope it helps us to think where Brazilian digital search stands in relation to digital methods. So that's wrap up. I would like, if you would like to learn a little bit more about my lab and what methodology we are developing, you can find all the information on our bilingual website. So thank you so much. And I look forward for our discussion. So sorry to expand a little bit more than what I thought. That's it.
Yes. No apologies necessary. It was really good presentation. Now I want to invite our third and final guest speaker before the break, Giulia Tucci. She's a postdoctoral researcher in a joint program between Brazilian Institute of Information Science and Technology and the School of Communication at Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. Giulia,
Hello.
are you there?
Yes.
You are
Can you
welcome to
hear
share
me?
your screen. Yes,
Okay, I'm doing it now.
but we cannot see you.
Can you see
Oh,
my
yes,
screen?
I can see you
Oh,
now.
okay.
Yeah,
So, and my screen is there, right?
yeah,
Okay.
everything is good. So the screen is
Okay.
yours.
Okay. So good morning and good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to join you remotely at King's College to present this initial mapping of digital methods and tools developed by Brazilian researchers. This presentation aims to highlight contributions to the field of digital methods pioneered by the outstanding work of Richard Rogers. I also want to recognize the relevance of this super important initiative by Janna Joceli Omena, a dear friend and a reference in the field. It is truly an honor to speak at this event alongside such distinguished figures like Alan Angeluci, Elias Bitencourt, and Lobo. Thank you very much, Janna. So going to the timeline, digital methods made in Brazil. This timeline represents a synthesis of methods and tools developed by Brazilian researchers over the last 15 years that are or could be used in digital methods research. What I do want to emphasize is that is an initial mapping based on my own background, and the idea is to expand this list further, both with tools that I have not come across yet, and with new methods and tools that are yet to be developed. And I hope this event here can serve as a starting point for that expansion. So before diving into the timeline, I will outline the criteria that I used to select the resources presented here. So first, each tool I mentioned, each tool and method that I included had to be documented with at least one accessible reference, such as a publication, a repository, or a web page. Second, the tool or method needed to have a direct application in internet research, offering users some autonomy, which includes functionalities like creating data sets, loading previously collected data, selecting and filtering analysis, and or exporting analyzed data. And third, they had to be non-commercial and free of cost. So my starting point was to select tools that I have used personally, followed by tools from researchers whose the work I am familiar with. And finally, I conducted a small search for Métodos Digitais, which is digital methods in Portuguese, on the Lattes platform, which is Brazil's academic curriculum database, to identify some additional developments. So again, while detailed, this process is not exhaustive. So there are likely open source tools that are not included here yet. So moving back to the timeline, which includes 19 methods and tools spanning multiple digital platforms. The tools are listed here in the row on the top row, and the methods are listed in the bottom row. So of course, due to time constraints, I won't cover each of them in detail, but this complete timeline and a detailed spreadsheet containing relevant information, references, and all the related links to each tool and or method will be made available after the event. I will talk to Janna to make this possible. So here are a few highlights that I want to show of the tools and methods developed by Brazilian researchers. So the first one is Pegabot, a tool adapted from Botometer, trained for the Brazilian context, which is really important to detect the bot accounts from Twitter, at the Institute Technology and Society here in Brazil. Also, the Python code adapted to MimSpecter by André Mintz, that was an essential adaptation for the use of MimSpecter, this amazing tool for analyzing images with computer vision APIs, as mentioned by Janna. Also, the WhatsApp Monitor by Fabrício Benevenuto's group from the Universidade Federal of Minas Gerais, as mentioned by Alan, and collaborators, but it was a crucial tool during the 2018 presidential election here in Brazil to track disinformation networks on WhatsApp. And the same group also developed later the Telegram Monitor. So also I want to highlight here, really important, a book containing a lot of methods, Métodos Digitais, Teoria Prática Crítica, which in English is Digital Methods, Theory, Practice, and Critique. So I have to mention this seminal book on digital methods in Portuguese language, edited by Janna, the first book of digital methods in Brazil and also probably in Portugal, since it was the first one in Portuguese. And also in 2019, the Reading Digital Networks recipe, also by Janna, that provides a super detailed step-by-step guide to generating and analyzing the structure and behavior of a digital social network. I use this a lot of times to create very beautiful visualizations. I also want to highlight this method, create a time-varying analysis of YouTube search results and related videos, which was created by João Guilherme Bastos dos Santos. It is a method for time-varying analysis, as the name says. It is integrated with YouTube data tools, and there is also a tool associated with it, but that's not yet public. But the tool was showcased and used during 2 editions of the Digital Methods Initiative Summer School in the University of Amsterdam, coordinated by Richard Rogers. And last but not least, the DisinfoDB, which is a database, a repository that it's under construction, soon to be released. The URL is already available, but it will be a repository that will aggregate content verified and flagged as disinformation by fact-checking agencies in Brazil, particularly content targeting diffuse rights, developed by Josir Cardoso Gomes at the Brazilian Institute for Information in Science and Technologies. Just some key observations about the complete timeline is that it's notable that how many tools emerged in 2018 during Brazil's first presidential election, comproved, shaped by disinformation campaigns on platforms like Twitter and WhatsApp. And also after 2021, with the platforming phenomenon and migration of extremist profiles to Telegram, we see a shift focused toward this platform. And also this is aided by its open and well-documented API. So now just here, a tool overview. So this table categorizes all the 11 tools by purpose, accessibility, and functionality. I have also included, when available, a screenshot of the tool here in the last row. So about 1/3 of these tools require installation, while others are more user-friendly and have a web interface. But some of them may face barriers like password protection, or they are now unavailable. So some tools like Pegabot and Capitu became non-functional after the termination of Twitter's API, like a lot of other tools that we were used to use in our research. These tools range from data collection and analysis, like the Wayback Machine News Extractor, the first one developed, which is not available anymore, and Capitu, to more specific proposals like the bot classificator Pegabot, or the image collection analysis image query. So just diving into the details of some tools, the image query tool here, it was developed by Janna Joceli Omena and Jason Chow, is designed for assisting offline visual analysis, addressing challenges in working with large data sets while ensuring for rigor. You can go there, download the tool, and use it and test it now. I first used this tool during the 2021 Digital Methods Initiative Summer School, the pandemic edition, when I developed a method to visualize a network of images without rendering the files in a project that was facilitated by Janna, part of a working group coordinated by Richard. The method is included on the timeline, and I remain grateful for this project until today. And also, I would like to highlight here Telecatch, which is a tool for visualizing, filtering, and extracting Telegram messages and media files from lists of groups and channels. It is co-developed by myself, Bia Carneiro, who is here with us, and Josué Ruchica. It was created to facilitate Telegram data analysis in response to the platform's growing prominence in digital communications. I invite all of you to go to our REPL and GitHub, download the tool, and install it to test. So just going back to my final considerations. So this timeline highlights innovative contributions from Brazilian researchers to the field of digital methods. However, it also indicates the need for better documentation and networking to amplify these contributions globally. Additionally, by fostering multidisciplinary collaborations and events like this one will be essential to address the complex challenges of digital methods research. Here in Brazil, we face significant challenges, such as the lack of investment in research, which is critical for maintaining computation infrastructure and servers for this kind of research. Moreover, data access remain a global challenge, particularly for the Global South. Just a last example, TikTok's academic API requires affiliation with an European or North American institution. Here in Brazil, we are not eligible for applying. So thank you for your attention. I look forward to your feedback, questions, and especially ideas on how we can expand this mapping together. Thank you.
Thank you, Giulia. Thank you so much. So we will have now 10 minutes tea break. And after 10 minutes, we're going to be back for the critical commentary by Richard Rogers and a Q&A and the open discussion. So thank you, everyone. Let's drink tea or water or coffee. I'll see you in 10 minutes. So, welcome for the second part. Now we have like Richard Rogers as discussant. Richard is professor of new media and digital culture in the Media Studies Department and director of Digital Methods Initiative, Humanities Lab at the University of Amsterdam. So, join me in welcoming Richard. The floor is yours.
Okay, thanks very much. Yeah, okay. Thanks so much for the invitation and for the opportunity. I want to thank everyone at King's, in particular, also the Brazilian digital methods researchers who have gathered together to make a quite a remarkable presentation on the massive amounts of work that you've been doing in Brazil over more than a decade. So this is for me, this was very special to hear. And so what I want to do briefly is on the basis of what you presented, and this is very sort of spontaneous, is to give you a sort of reaction. And so I've entitled this Remapping. So I mean, you've mapped it out very, very well. And now I want to sort of try to remap it in the sense of tell you what your maps sort of inspired in me to say about the work. So I have three. I basically have three larger points. And so the first one is and maybe it's this, maybe it's this. Yeah. So what I found interesting was the question of the specificity or the generality of Brazilian digital methods, and I wanted to frame this in a sort of language that that is sometimes used to discuss the specificity of method per country, and this is a term called methodological nationalism. It's a critical term. And then I would like to compare that to what I just sort of conceived of as something more like cosmopolitan methodologies. And so what is happening in Brazil? So should we sort of speak of it as something quite sort of national, quite specific, or as rather cosmopolitan? And I think it's the latter. I think it's more cosmopolitan. I mean, the digital methods in Brazil suggests specificity, but to me, the practice there is more cosmopolitan. And I want to frame this question in sort of in three different ways. So there is specificity and there is the cosmopolitan at the same time. And so you see that in these three things that I've written down. So are there particular platform preferences and or proclivities in Brazil? And I wanted to think about that in terms of, well, are the objects of study those objects that are sort of, kind of the most popular or prominent in Brazil, or such as, I don't know, is Facebook, WhatsApp, or do they follow more kind of international trends, which is, for example, up until 3 years ago now, the sort of like all the amount of work that was done by Twitter data compared to everything else, right? And here it's a mix of both. So there seems to be a lot of Twitter work, but also a lot of sort of work on WhatsApp. And so the WhatsApp work in particular is something that's quite distinctive to Brazil, but it's also very cosmopolitan. It's something that contributes to international digital methods work. So the second one is, so the first one is platforms. The second one is, are there particular objects that are preferred? Yes and no. So yes, in the sense of bots. So there's a lot more bot studies in Brazil than I would say elsewhere. In sort of digital methods work, there's a lot more sort of instant messaging studies. So the message and I mean a lot of people have had trouble with studying WhatsApp over the last sort of 10 years, let's say. How do you do it? How do you do it well? A lot of the sort of principles of or kind of tips and tricks of digital methods you can't easily apply to WhatsApp, but somehow you work that out. So this is more sort of the specificity that contributes to the international, but then the cosmopolitan is the emphasis, I think, on images and computer vision and this sort of work, as well as the recent work on Telegram, which I think is something that sort of follows more kind of quote unquote international trends. Okay, and then the third one, are there specific sort of tools and technique preferences and proclivities? Are there national ones, or is it more cosmopolitan, so to speak? Well, again, sort of a bit of both. There's some specificity in the sense of the bot research and the WhatsApp tools. There's the international in the computer vision, in the telecatch. So these sorts of trends. So what I would say that just on this point, I would say what started as quite sort of national has become, at least to my mind, looking at the timelines and things, has become cosmopolitan. So this is the first point. The second one. Yeah. So the second idea has to do with the advantages and disadvantages of a broad versus a narrow digital methods. And I think this has come up in all the presentations, one way or the other. So yeah, the broad, so so there's a number of ways of talking about the should we sort of think of digital methods as this sort of huge umbrella, this really big tent, this that encompasses so many things, like the computational social sciences, digital humanities, the various computational approaches, and also should we think of digital methods in this sort of new post-digital school of thought, right? So do we need the word digital any longer, because aren't all methods in some sense, or a lot of methods also rely on the digital? So what is to be gained with this word of this emphasis, right? So especially Alain's presentation of that, like, this is sort of what came out of that a little bit, that there isn't that much narrow, or the combination of the lens and Elias's presentations, there isn't that much narrow, and there is a lot that is broad. So there's maybe a lot to be said for the broad. However, that if we go for the broad, we might miss out on like the sort of the particular contributions of digital methods, which lies in the narrow, right? So these sorts of things. The productivity, so what's particularly productive about the narrow, about these ideas, following the medium, online groundness, medium repurposing, working with platform affordances, metrics, data, the study of the natively digital, emphasizing that. And I think if we go with the broad, we might miss the symmetry of the narrow, that is, studying the social and the medium at the same time. Because a lot of the broad will do one or the other and not the two at the same time. So but that's what would be lost if we were to discard the narrow, but there is also arguments to be made for embracing the broad. Especially when you see the state of the field in the country. So these are discussion points. Huh? And then the third one and the last one is now now and in future. So Brazilian researchers, how are you going to help us at the moment? So we have a lot of challenges. And there have been so many contributions, both nationally and internationally, that you have made. What are the current contributions and how to move forward? So I see that there are quite a few contributions to the current data dearth, or the end of big data, so to speak. So this idea of the API is drying up, and now we have to sort of return to scraping or move to those platforms that are more sort of generous with their data, which is sort of alt tech. And so we've seen in some of the Brazilian work that the latest tool and technique development, and this is a shout out to you, Giulia, that there's a lot of emphasis now on working with this, the alt tech, especially Telegram. So we see this contribution to the this cosmopolitan contribution. However, we still have quite other challenges at the moment, and a lot of the challenges revolve around content moderation, one way or the other. So how does content moderation affect the quality of online data? How can content moderation be studied in terms of platform and algorithmic effects? So this is, in some sense, the idea that what was once called trace research is something that is quite difficult to do these days. So just rely on on digital traces as your sort of object of study, and because of the fact that the traces are no longer, well, they haven't been for a very long time, but they're no longer pure. They no longer reflect the activities of users, but they're increasingly reflect the activities of the platform, whether it's user capture or whether it's content moderation or algorithmic effects. So what sort of contributions can we see to these issues? The study of moderation. Now we see some. There's not new, but over the last I guess, well, since the bot studies are revolving around Bolsonaro politics, but more recently, I think the larger emphasis on disinformation. So here, this is one way that you could see of the contribution being made for Brazilian digital methods to this area, to content moderation. But I think there could be more, and I think this is sort of an invitation to take up some of the current challenges and make additional cosmopolitan contributions. That's it.
Do we have any questions for any of the panelists? Yeah, maybe we can start with the audience here. Wow, we have some already here. If we want to start, maybe we can kick off here. So this one is from the Miro board. I think it's for you, Janna. Mm-hmm. So very insightful and helpful for those of us who are not familiar with the field of digital methods. Do you have any recommended reading on instrumental approaches to digital methods? Thanks, Sebastian. Oh, he's not here anymore. Yes, we do have a list of recommendation readings and very hands-on approach on the methods. In my slides, that there is like one example that you can find out step-by-step tutorials, because my presentation was a little bit less about the how-to, and it was more about the rationale and the mindset behind the methods. And I am happy to share these with you later when we share all the presentations. So I can do that if it is helpful.
Okay, so there are two questions for Alan here, but he addressed them, but maybe you want to also address to people here. They are both about kind of how to broaden the research that you have done so far. So if you want to talk a bit about that, next steps.
Yeah, thanks, Thais. Yeah, both questions were related to like make it broader. I think the idea was like to draft some aspects. So I had to be very restricted, in order to analyze the data. So that's why I focus on these particular aspects of Brazilians from Brazil, from Brazilian institutions doing research on national publications and so on. But of course, as we mentioned, there's much more being done, like in different vehicles or in different spaces. So this is what we were discussing recently, Jana, Thais. Maybe not. We will like expand it, like trying to give more highlights and look at other data in order to, try to collect more information. And of course, this involves like trying to reach other research, trying to reach other groups, as mentioned by Marcelo here too. So yeah, that's something that we are looking for. This was just a draft, just like food for thoughts. Yes, Jonathan. Thank you also.
Maybe the microphone. Wait a minute.
Thank you so much, everyone, for such rich engagement to situate digital methods in the Brazilian context. I like the way that everyone took the starting point very seriously and did a lot of reviews, and it was a really interesting kind of periodization, like multi-layered periodization of work in Brazil, which I found very useful. And thanks for Richard. I also found that kind of the questions and prompts at the end really helpful as well. I was wondering, sort of bridging between everyone's talks a little bit, if like, in the European context, in the Dutch context, one can situate digital methods as it's kind of found in Richard's work in relation to other fields of inquiry and other kinds of developments that were happening around it. I was curious whether in the Brazilian context, when you looked for how digital methods was being taken up and how it was being developed, were there other kinds of companion fields or adjacent fields that might tell you something about how it's unfolding in the Brazilian context? So, for example, I don't know, I think in the event abstract, there's a mention of data journalism. There's a little bit of that narrative, I think, in the introduction. But I was curious about if you could maybe elaborate a bit on some of the other kind of contexts or ways in which digital methods have been taken up. And I'm also thinking of kind of, there's a very obviously strong kind of hacker culture. There's a strong culture of open source software development. And I wondered if any of those kind of connect up anyway to.
Elias and Giulia, do you want to say something?
Yes, just complementing, this was a part of our previous discussion, and I think that Elias brought like this, how the digital methods field in Brazil is formed, and how we can see there are a lot of people doing, a lot of researchers doing works that could be fitted into the digital methods field, but the researchers themselves do not classify their research as in the digital methods field. So just, I think Elias brought it pretty well in his presentation.
Yeah, you want to say something?
Yeah. well, just complementing Giulia, and starting from what I look on the papers I search it, there's often some structure around digital methods, and when you look at publications, you can see like digital methods and controversy mapping, also of course actor network theory, like that's like blended. Sometimes you can see this very much digital sociology as well. Sometimes you can see this kind of bridge. Of course, Manovic, as mentioned by you, mentioned a lot about this, like this connection. So that's something I saw on papers as well. So Manovic with cultural analytics. Well, Manovic is something interesting to be analyzed, as he has a huge influence in this kind of discussion in Brazil, mainly because of his previous book, like The Language of New Media and Software Takes Common. Those have a big impact on researching media studies in Brazil. So this kind of influence, this discussion, digital methods now, so this sometimes comes together. And laser as well, Dave Laser with its computational social science, you can see this emphasis as well. And of course, we were kind of discussing this before, like really some professional aspects, like how this discussion in academia is like invading the professional debate, like the market or the professions in Brazil. So we can see this very strong, like in journalism, like in data journalism. So it's something that there's a very tight connection. I can see this very well, and from papers as well. So maybe these are some expansions around digital methods and dialogues that I could feel and see in this collection.
Well, I have here a comment to Richard, and maybe two questions, one for Elias and another one for Giulia. So the comment, response for your comment, Richard, someone saying, maybe a round table in air Brazilian event would be great to address the current state of research on digital methods and build collaborations.
Okay.
There was like a comment for you. Then for Elias, someone is asking, Elias, you mentioned that what comes closest our understanding of digital methods is work by more recent researchers, not necessarily in universities, some outside the university. Could you say more about that? Okay.
Which I found that interesting, if I understood that correctly, that you were talking about how there were practitioners outside of the university who are collaborating with universities on digital methods research, if I understood that correctly. So I was curious to hear more about, I guess, who is doing digital methods outside of the university as well.
Well, so thanks for question. So the idea is because Brazil has a very particular reality on founding and space for receive the newest doctors and postdoctorates. So usually we finish our doctorate and we have no space to work because the big universities usually just accept professors by very strong and rare process of selection. So most of those doctors usually came to the market, and work with some other initiatives like creating NGOs or institutes, and over there they are applying and developing some methodologies. For example, in Brazil we have the Democracia em Cheque and other institutes. They are not necessarily working under the university umbrella, So, and this is very special because these researchers are working on reports and other types of scientific material that are not necessarily visible because they are not under the peer-reviewed journals or DOI identifications. So that's what I mentioned. We have a new generation of researchers that are more familiarized with this digital methods and digital method scholars, and not necessarily this new generation are working as a professors and starting to formate another generation. You know, they are in a more practical field and working in a more honing mode. That's what I try to say. I don't know if I answered what you were expecting.
Thank you, Elias. Someone
Thank you.
is also asking whether the presentations and slides are going to be available. Yes, we are going to make them all available. We're going to email you and share the link with everything. There is like a question here for Giulia, and maybe I can also expand this question for Richard as well, because of your experience, Richard. In so many years developing methods and method schools. So someone is asking, how is doing digital methods organized in Brazil? And it's asking about the collaborative work. Is it a collaborative work? As there conferences, spring, summer schools. So maybe Giulia, you can address these questions from your perspective in Brazil. And also I would love to hear from Richard experience. Giulia?
Okay, thank you for the question. So for the specific field of digital methods, from what I am aware, we have some departments in the universities, not digital methods departments, but we have some disciplines. I think Marcelo gives a discipline at the Catholic University here in Rio. He's here with us on digital methods. So, and we have also research groups and some research initiatives in the universities. And summer school, I am aware of one edition of a summer school organized by the Getúlio Vargas Foundation. It was in English, but I am aware of only of the first edition. If one of my Brazilian colleagues here know if that was a second edition, you can correct me, please. But and for sure, I know that a lot of groups, research groups that work with digital methods here send their students, I can talk about myself, to the summer school in the University of Amsterdam. It was where I met Janna, I met Richard, and when I started to classify the work that I was already doing, and it was around digital methods, but that was when I was start to say that I am a digital methods researcher. So that's how we are still organizing ourselves in Brazil. So, and also that's why this initiative promoted by Janna is very important for us to create connections and start this network, start to do more collaborative work. So thank you. I'll pass to Richard.
Thank you, Giulia.
So, I mean, the only thing that I wanted to say is that digital methods work. This is a really important question of actually sort of how to do it. And so historically, a lot of that work has been done in collaboration with non-governmental organizations, with journalists, with governmental organizations, with other academics, working in different fields, but having important sort of societal outreach questions or social issues that they're researching, and so actually providing some kind of forum for the work to be done is crucial. So the way we do it is quite specific, and it's been going on for some time. So maybe it can be recommended, but we provide a kind of platform for people to do digital methods work at the same time every year. Sort of, we have the winter school and the summer school, and they're at the same. It's you can plan it basically. So it's every January and it's every early July. And for us internally, these are teaching free periods. So we plan it so that people can actually sort of do some work for in a sprint format. So the sprints are a week long or 2 weeks long. We have experimented with so these are open sprints, and in some sense, they're kind of unconferences in the sense that the agenda is open and then you fill it in. We give it an overall theme, but people come with projects and then you do the projects. We have experimented with a couple of other formats, and which I can also recommend. And these are sort of more expert sprints. So it's just a particular group of people. But the emphasis is on completing a project. And this is also very important. People aren't necessarily used to that. They're used to coming together and hearing presentations, and then sort of leaving. And there's also a culture in academia and beyond of not really wanting to commit for more than half a day, day and a half, like for European projects. That's literally day and a half, if that's the format. So we're actually introducing this short form research workshop format, which is actually a 5-day commitment, is something that goes against the grain of so what I noticed is that in Brazil, so many of the elements are in place, right? So there's the research culture, there's the conceptual work, there's the tool development, but as someone, I think what you're intimating here in your question is that sprint platform or that workshop platform has yet to be developed, and yeah, I would encourage you to do it.
Thank you, Richard. Well, on that note, I also wanted to share something very briefly, that this aspect of digital methods for me is really what fascinates me, this collaborative environment, but also the culture of open methods, culture of like developing software and open software, right? Rather than, or in opposition of, I'm going to create my methods and this like a secret. So and I think everyone in a sense benefit from it, is like a win-win situation. So yeah, I would love to start these to kick off like this dialogue and connection, and connect with people in Brazil, and maybe creating more opportunities for we maybe start this new way or culture of advancing methods. I would love to navigate more questions, but we don't have time for that anymore. So just thank you for the panelists who joined for the Q&A. And for the rest of the 20 minutes or 50 minutes that we have like the mirror board now, and Thais is just going to lead us in using it and sharing and trying to connect with a few activities, right?
Yeah, so we have 3 proposed questions, activities that we ask you to fill out. The first one would be about your digital methods research. So if you could share topic of study, questions, platforms, methods for studying digital media and culture in Brazil. This would help us to group people, and maybe we can find connections right there. The next one, there are 2 interconnected questions. One is first, in what ways do you see your research aligning with digital methods we are discussing today? And if your research already incorporates these methods, how would you define them based on your own practices? As we've been talking today, there are many ways to understand it. So it would be great if you could share. And finally, so things that could support you in advanced digital methods research in Brazil, either training, tools, types of funding, collaborations. So we have how many minutes for people to fill? 10 minutes, and then we have a 5 or 10 minutes just to, yeah. That's it.
And do we want Brazilian soundtrack?
Yes, we want.
I think we want.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Yeah, thanks, Elias. Okay.
Yes.
Well, basically, it's to say thank you so much for joining us, everyone online and everyone in person. It was a good time of dialoguing and connecting. Maybe we can expand this network, going to Brazil. Uh, we're going to be in touch with you to share all the slides and the materials. And yeah, it's just to say thank you, and I hope this network can grow and we can advance more digital methods research in Brazil and Brazil, UK, and with other countries. So thank you, everyone. I also see like familiar faces. Mariana, Ana, Carlos, so many dear colleagues, and really looking forward to expand this network. Thank you so much. Oh, we could take a picture.
Yeah.
Let's take a
Sure.
picture. Okay, let's do that. 1 minute. We can do the official now.